You make a six-figure salary? You did everything society asked of you. Yet at the end of the month, your checking account looks exactly like it did when you were an intern. This is not a lack of personal discipline. This is a structural economic reality, according to the Quarter 1 2026 report by the Federal Reserve. The personal savings rate for the top 10% of income earners just hit a 15-year low. It confirms a bitter truth. You are earning more, but you are owning less. Hitting the $100,000 mark used to be the ultimate financial finish line. Today, it is merely the entry fee to a highly sophisticated, completely frictionless cycle of behavioral wealth extraction. The modern consumer economy does not conspire against you in some shadowy backroom. It simply operates on the mathematical assumption of your cognitive fatigue. Let us look at the anatomy of this invisible leak through a case study we will call Alex, 32 years old, a project manager earning $110,000 a year. Alex is not financing a sports car or buying designer watches. The financial bleed happens through microscopic, frictionless spending. It is the phenomenon of lifestyle inflation disguised as basic self-care. But before we look at Alex's daily spending, we must look at the macroeconomic baseline. In 2020, a $100,000 salary bought a specific, comfortable, middle-class existence. By 2026, adjusting for compounded premium shrinkflation, you need exactly $137,000 just to maintain that exact same purchasing power. You are running on an economic treadmill that is quietly accelerating. Now apply this macro pressure to Alex's monthly baseline. $400 goes to food delivery apps heavily weighted in hidden service fees, priority charges, and automatic tips. $500 goes to ride shares because taking the public train after a 14-hour shift feels like a physical impossibility. Another $150 vanishes into a web of auto-renewing software subscriptions and streaming platforms that Alex has not logged into since October. That is $1,050 in convenience costs every single month. But here is the cold, brutal reality of the tax bracket. To spend that $1,050 net, Alex actually has to earn roughly $1,500 gross. If Alex is carrying a $12,000 balance on a credit card at a 22% annual percentage rate, another $220 vaporizes every 30 days just to service the interest. That exact $220 equals precisely 6.5 hours of highly stressful, brain-draining corporate labor. 6.5 hours of answering emails, mitigating risks, and sitting in high-pressure meetings, handed directly to a financial institution just for the privilege of holding debt. Every time you tap your screen for convenience, you are not just spending money. You are permanently trading away hours of your limited, irreplaceable life energy. Why do some of the smartest, most highly educated professionals make such irrational financial calculations? The answer is not a lack of financial literacy. It is rooted in human biology. We must examine the mechanics of decision fatigue and cognitive friction. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for impulse control and long-term planning, functions exactly like a biological battery. After 10 hours of navigating office politics and making high-stakes decisions, this battery is completely depleted. You enter a documented psychological state called ego depletion. By the time you get home at 8 o'clock at night, you are biologically incapable of making a rational financial choice. User interfaces on consumer applications are meticulously engineered around this exact biological vulnerability. They utilize dark patterns to eliminate every single ounce of cognitive friction between your immediate emotional impulse and your bank account. Facial recognition, one-click checkout, stored payment profiles, They have deliberately removed the physical act of pulling out a credit card, masking the psychological pain of parting with your money. As a high-income professional, you are no longer buying objects. You are purchasing temporary psychological comfort. You are buying 20 minutes of unbothered silence. You are paying a massive premium to temporarily sedate the stress of the very job that is paying your salary. This exhaustion is compounded by a systemic shift in the service sector. Behavioral economists identify this as premium shrinkflation. A recent 2026 analysis by YouGov Profiles highlights this exact shift, showing that the cost of upper-middle-class staples, things like children's extracurricular education, premium health insurance, and VIP delivery services, has surged by 15% over a 2-year period. At the exact same time, the actual quality of these services has noticeably degraded. The modern economic structure views a 6-figure salary not as a measure of your personal success, but as a reliable, predictable revenue stream to be tapped. It relies entirely on the middle-class squeeze, functioning flawlessly because it knows you are too busy, too tired, and too stressed to rigorously audit your own cash flow. It expects you to passively absorb the hidden fees because fighting them requires a mental energy you no longer possess. This is where the panic stops and the cold, tactical math begins. You cannot control macroeconomic inflation, and you cannot magically cure the exhaustion of your corporate career. But you can ruthlessly re-engineer the artificial friction in your life. You must stop playing the role of the passive consumer and step into the role of a capital allocator. It starts by abandoning the traditional spreadsheet budget. Traditional budgeting consistently fails high earners because it requires immense cognitive load and willpower, the exact 2 biological resources you have already exhausted at the office. Instead, you deploy inverse budgeting. This framework relies entirely on automated systems, rather than behavioral discipline. The exact moment your paycheck hits your account, a predetermined algorithmic transfer must execute. May exactly 20% of your net income is instantly and automatically routed into a completely separate investment account held at a completely different financial institution. You do not look at it, and you do not touch it. What remains in your primary checking account creates an engineered illusion of scarcity. By artificially shrinking your visible liquidity, you force your brain to subconsciously recognize limits without ever needing to track individual purchases. Next, you must execute a digital purge. Go into every delivery application, every rideshare application, and every online retailer and manually delete your saved credit card information. Disable digital wallets for browser purchases. Reintroduce the friction. Force yourself to get up from the couch, find your physical wallet, and manually type in a 16-digit number. That 60 seconds of forced cognitive friction is often exactly the pause your prefrontal cortex needs to reboot, evaluate the transaction, and override the dopamine craving. That 20% you are automatically extracting every month is not just an emergency fund left in a savings account to be eroded by inflation. It is your financial ammunition. You must restructure your psychological reward system. Retrain your brain to get a dopamine hit from capital accumulation rather than frictionless spending. Do not just let that money sit idle. Convert it into productive energy through cash flow assets and broad market growth funds, like a NASDAQ 100 index fund. When you do this, you are executing a profound mathematical defense. At a high-income tax bracket, every $1 you save and reinvest is practically equivalent to earning $1.40 in gross pre-tax income. That is how you hack the tax code through simple mathematics. You are no longer trading your time for money to buy convenience. You are literally buying back your future time. If you consistently capture that capital and subject it to the brutal, beautiful mathematics of compound interest over 10, 15, or 20 years, you transition from being a piece of the economic machine to owning a piece of the machine. Watching your asset column grow month over month triggers a new kind of satisfaction, the quiet, unshakable confidence of financial leverage. You build a fortress around your family that no hidden convenience fee or macroeconomic shift can penetrate. A six-figure salary is not a destination. It is simply a tool. Stop letting structural flaws extract your wealth. Reclaim your cognitive friction, automate your financial defense, and prioritize your future autonomy over momentary, expensive comfort. But reclaiming your cash flow is only the first step in dismantling the system. Once you have built this automated defense, you will begin to notice how deeply the banking system itself is engineered to keep your money moving and keep you slightly off balance. In fact, if you look closely at the interface of your primary banking application right now, you will spot three distinct visual triggers designed specifically by behavioral psychologists to make you feel financially anxious. What exactly are those triggers doing to your subconscious every time you log in to check your balance?